everybody, and welcome to another Doctor Who video. This time I am looking back from my Doctor's ratings I did in August 2018 and updating them slightly for the 60th anniversary. We've had one more Doctor in the television progression from William Hartnell through to Jodie Whittaker. I'm not including any Big Finish or expanded medium stuff. I'm concentrating solely on the television stories of each of the Doctors. If Big Finish was included, there's some Doctors in here that would go higher up and some Doctors that would go lower down. So to keep it clear and plain, it's only the linear progression from the first Doctor through to the 13th Doctor. I'm not including the Fugitive Doctor because I don't know where she fits in the timeline. I don't think anybody does, and that's the whole confusion about the Timeless Child. It's very much suggesting from the later stuff in the 13th Doctor's era that she's an earlier version than Hartnell. So we're going to keep with the Fugitive Doctor out of the way at this point. It's just a linear progression from the first Doctor through to the 13th, including the War Doctor. Now, I'm going to intersperse this recording that you're seeing right now with what I recorded back in 2018, because the comments I made then are still relevant now for most of the Doctors. If there's anything additionally to add in, I will do, and of course my thinking of the 13th Doctor will purely from this recording that you're seeing here, the newer version. But let's get into it, let's go through the ratings. Number 14, we start with the War Doctor, played by John Hurt. He's only got appearance of maybe, 15 minutes or so of screen time on his, really, for him, because it's a multi-Doctor story at the end of the day. It's David Tennant, Matt Smith and John Hurt. But I love the character of the War Doctor. I do like this kind of broken man that he's coming across, but there wasn't enough time for me to make an opinion of this Doctor. And he just down the bottom purely on lack of time, not because of anything that the actor did, because John Hurt is and was a brilliant actor. Okay, number 13. It is the same bottom two as it was last time. The 6th Doctor, played by Colin Baker. All these lists you get with favourite Doctors, he tends to be languishing in the bottom. I know there's a few people out there who would probably say that he's not, and I feel that Colin Baker's 6th Doctor should have had another season. If he had another season, I think we would have seen a development a la Peter Capaldi. I think he was too gruff, he didn't mellow enough, and don't get me wrong, Colin Baker plays the part to perfection. There's not a duff time he does anything, but the characterisation just wasn't for me, isn't for me. I enjoy the stories, but it's not, I enjoy the Doctor, but I don't like the Doctor as much as I do others. Position number 12. It's still a difficult one for me. This is when it's starting to get a bit harder for me in regards to the ratings, because my opinions of the Doctors have, of the ranking of them has shifted slightly. My opinions of what the Doctors are and who they are hasn't changed, but the rankings have changed a little bit. It's the first Doctor, William Hartnell. There is a part of bias here, because obviously I was a Doctor Who fan from the TV movie. So I started in 1996 as a hardcore fan. So it's been over 20 years now I've been a Doctor Who fan as such. So watching all the stuff and seeing all the stuff back, I like the betrayal that Hartnell does, but it's of its time. And maybe it's me. Maybe it's just a time thing. Maybe it's a maturity thing. But Hartnell doesn't rate as high for me as he used to. And there's a few elements here. And it's the same with some of the Doctors on here, actually. Don't rate as high as I used to. And I think my appreciation of the first Doctor has changed through me watching the whole series from the beginning up to the present day, when I did my marathon type thing in 2013, 2014. So I do understand where I'm coming from this. The first major change from last time. Number 11 is a Doctor that's gone down 2 places from the last time he was on the list. It's the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann. I love Paul McGann's characterisation. I think it is kind of, a kind of rose-tinted spectacles a little bit, because the TV movie was the first proper story that made me a fan, made me want to go back and see the rest of it. I'm weird like that. I'm kind of the interregnum type fan that started in the interregnum, because I was too young to watch it when it was first going out, and I'm too old to watch it as a child when it came back as a new series. So I'm kind of in between. But I appreciate it all. I always do. I always have. So McGann, I love the performance of McGann. It's just he needed more. He needed more time. And if he had more time, then he would be absolutely, I think he would be a great Doctor. The audio dramas does say that. But for the TV appearance only, he only languishes at the bottom half of the table. Number 10. This is where we get the new entry. Jodie Whittaker, the 13th Doctor, sits at number 10. Now, why is the 13th Doctor so far down? I just don't have a big opinion of this Doctor, if I'm absolutely honest. I do like the way that Jodie Whittaker's carries put across. She certainly shows her acting chops, as every Doctor, and I keep saying this, every Doctor is good with the role they get. However, one thing with the characterization of the Doctor, which I'm not quite keen on in this modern era, is she's very, very talky. That's nothing to do with the way that Jodie Whittaker portrays it. She nails all the lines she gets. She has this persona of a very mad auntie, which is really lovely. It's really quite fun the way the character is, and I like the humour. I like the comedy element she puts in here. The way that she seems a bit dithery and her brain's moving faster than she can speak, and she speaks fast. It's really an interesting character, and you can see there's a great intelligence here. That I think the writing kind of pulls it down just a little bit, just like Colin Baker's era does. I think the writing can be weak at times in regards to some of the storylines and plot lines. They don't quite fit together, and it just pull down what the Doctor reacts to. As with some of the Stephen Moffat's era, there's a few Deus Ex Machina stories that come up. Not as many as the previous two eras, but there is still some there. She's also more reliant on the companions to help her in her causes. She's more of a team player than actually the leader, and that kind of puts her into the background sometimes with some of the other characters, especially Graham. Bradley Walsh's Graham, he really does overpower some of the scenes when he's in them compared to what Jodie does. And it's nothing to do with the way that the 13th Doctor is acted. It's just the way it's written, and it doesn't make the 13th Doctor the most forward-thinking of the Doctors in that respect. And it's going back more to an older type Doctor, like a first or second Doctor, and that's possibly why it's a little bit further down, because it's more talk than action. Very little fighting goes on with her. I don't think she actually raises her hands properly at any point in the series, and that's the first time a Doctor's done that for a good view. I think the last one that actually didn't raise a hand was I think Seven was the last one that didn't raise a hand to an enemy, really. Well, the War Doctor, I suppose, could as well, but I mean, he was violent in other ways. So it's been a long time since we've had this sort of Doctor, and that's possibly why it's an interesting character, but I don't think in the modern way of storytelling it works as well. I think she'll be better served when it comes to the expanded media. I think Jodie Whittaker's very good for that. She'd be brilliant as an audio Doctor. Big Finish take note, because I think she's going to be one of the better of the modern Doctors to bring into the fold. I know you've got David Tennant, I know you've got Christopher Eccleston, hopefully you've got Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi in the way, but I think Jodie's going to be your next step. I think Jodie's the one you should really go for if you want to get another modern Doctor into the Big Finish, because the way that Doctor works, very wordy, very talky, very well lends itself to radio. Maybe not so much to television, but it does to radio, and it's definitely a Doctor for that kind of medium more than what you have in television now. I respect the way it's been portrayed. I respect the way that Chris Chibnall took a chance. I just don't think the 13th Doctor works completely the way they should do for the modern audience. And I think that's probably why she's so far down the list. It's not so much the character. I love all the Doctors. I love the way they're played, and this one's no different. I just think this characterization just pegs her down a little bit in the overall enjoyment factor that some of the other Doctors give in better spades than this one. Okay, let's go to number 9. It is the third Doctor, Jon Pertwee, up 1 from last time. Now, I love the characterization of the third Doctor, but there's too many stories and tropes that the third Doctor just falls into again and again and again and again. And I love his cross between working with the establishment and becoming anti-establishment and railing against the authorities. But Pertwee's Doctor only really comes into his own in the latter half of his fourth season and into his 5th. Up to that point, the stories are very politically motivated. They're very of their time. They're actually a little bit dated, apart from exceptions of Inferno and possibly maybe something like Curse of Peladon. But the rest of the stories, the unit. I love the unit idea, and I love the Master as well. But my appreciation after watching the whole series is he doesn't rate as highly as he used to, if I'm honest. Number 8. It is the same place as last time. It's the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi. Now, Capaldi is a brilliant actor. He's got the same credentials as Colin Baker, never puts a foot wrong. He's a brilliant actor, and he has the cycle that Sixth Doctor should have had. He has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The Sixth Doctor only had a beginning and a kind of middle and never had an end. I'd love to have seen him do another season. I know logistically why he didn't do another season, but I'd love Capaldi to do just one more season, just to see if this Doctor that I was starting to enjoy in Series 10 could become more than what he became, and because of the writing and the characterization in the early parts, I'm not as much a fan of this Doctor as I would be others further up on the list. Number 7 is the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, down 1 from last time. Now, I like Matt Smith's Doctor. Very quirky, very much a Troughton-esque and McCoy-esque elements to him as well. A lot of people don't realise this, but if you look at Matt Smith's Doctor, he's very dark, like the 7th Doctor. Matt Smith, for me, doesn't pull off the darker moments and the whimsical as well as McCoy does. But I do like Matt Smith's portrayal. Matt Smith really was, the dark fairy tale went a bit too dark, I think, and it went one further from what the McCoy era did when it comes to the darker stuff. One addendum I would say to the characterization I've got here, I'm watching some of the stuff more recently, and I'm not quite as enamoured with Matt Smith and his character later on. I think Matt Smith is phoning it in just a tad with some of the characterizations, or it's the case of the writing's quite loose and Matt's having to work in his own work, do all his stuff and his whimsies a bit more, and that's part of the reason it's bringing me down just a little bit with this character. Number 6, it is Eccles, Christopher Eccleston, the 9th Doctor, partly coloured by the fact I've revisited more recently in the journey that myself and my partner are going through of watching Modern Who, and I really do like all the stories. Even the long game I've appreciated more, and I think it's probably why I popped him up just one more step than he was before, because I think he's actually got better with age than others. I think he's a nice little middle point. He still is technically the middle point, a little bit further over, but he's still one of the better Doctors in my eyes, and that's why I've notched him up a step. Now, I love Eccleston's Doctor. He brought back Doctor Who for me as a series ongoing concern for people to take an interest on. If it wasn't for Eccleston, you wouldn't have Tennant. But because he is the beginning of the new series, he does have a middle point to me. It's one of these things, again, the reason why some of these Doctors are lower down is because they don't have enough time to do what they need to do as the character. And there's a couple later on that have the same thing. But Eccleston, I really wanted to see another series. I think Eccleston would have been one of the top Doctors if he'd had another season, because it was all there. He did a journey. He went from a very very broken man to somebody who has been redeemed with Rose, and I think obviously another season it would have worked. I think we would have seen possibly maybe a romance similar to what Ted and Rose did, but maybe in a more sibling way, maybe brother sister way, family way, which may have worked out better. 5th in the list, down from 3rd last time, it's the 2nd Doctor. Part of the reason for this is because I've had another appreciation of the Doctors a bit more recently. I still love Troughton's character. He still is the Bill blueprint, but I think I think there's other Doctors that are better than him ahead of him. So he's been put down 2 places to 5th. He set the bar for a lot of the Doctors that followed. If it wasn't for Troughton, there wouldn't be Doctor Who today. He did a lot for the series, and I love the cosmic hobo uncle type persona that he gives, which comes across with McCoy, it comes across with Matt Smith, it comes across with some of the other Doctors as well, like John Pertwee has an element of it as well. But the craziness and the way Troughton plays it, it's just mesmerising to watch, and every time new stuff comes out with Troughton that becomes available either animated or comes through from things that were found, it just amazes me. Enemy of the World is actually, people love Web of Fear, but I prefer Enemy of the World of the 2 stories that were found in 2013. I actually prefer Enemy of the World. I love the way that Troughton plays 2 different characters, the Salamander and the Doctor, and they work well, and Troughton has a great acting chops as well, and he really has played it as a character and made the Doctor, basically set the framework for characters like Matt Smith's Doctor. Matt Smith's Doctor is very much influenced with Pat Troughton. You can see that in the whimsical side. The darker side is of other elements, and obviously I've explained that already, but I do love Troughton's Doctor for the fact that he set a bar that none of the Doctors really have managed to match in regards to characterization. There's always something that is missing from them, because that character is completely different from what Troughton was as a person. Troughton was a lot different from what the persona was, and I loved the characterization that he did. Number 4, I actually regretted putting this Doctor so low down last time which is why I've notched him up one. It's the Fifth Doctor, Peter Davison. I love Davison's portrayal. It's vastly different from Tom Baker's. It's very understated. It's very human. It's the first time we see such a young incarnation of the Doctor. Now, I like the Fifth Doctor, and I think his first and last seasons are brilliant. His middle one's a bit iffy, but I love Davison's portrayal. I love that young Doctor. The Caves of Androzani is one of my favourite stories, but it was too late. It should have been late earlier on, and I think Davison might have stayed another season. But it was really fun. Number 3. Well, we're getting to the top 3. We know the situation. You know which Doctors are left by now. I would say this one is maybe more naturalised. I still have the criticisms I did last time, which you'll see in a second, but it is the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker. Now, before you jump down my throat of of course Tom Baker was the Doctor and still is to the Doctor, to himself, even to this day. However, there is a lot of problems I find in the middle 3 seasons when Graham Williams took over as producer. The first 3 are gold. Brilliant stories, apart from Revenge of the Cybermen. I love all the stories in those first 3 seasons. Very gothic horror. It's, I like that style. I'm not really a horror fan, but I like the way they portrayed it on there. It's kind of family-friendly horror. I love that. And then the last season I've got a fondness for. I do like season 18, The Leisure Hive, State of Decay, and Keeper Traken are some of my favourites of that season. But I do like the Tom Baker's performance in either end of his era. His middle era, he got too silly. Yeah, City of Death is an exception. Maybe the Pirate Planet, and potentially we're talking something like the Android Zatara and Stones of Blood. But really, a lot of the stuff in that middle period, seasons 15, 16 and 17, it's very silly. It kind of brings down the character down a bit too wild, a bit too over the top. Loved in America. That's how Doctor Who became known as a cult in America before Matt Smith's era launched it into what it is now. But it was really Tom Baker that made in America, and I can understand that. The quirkiness is there. I love the quirkiness, and every single Doctor that I have in this list is quirky now. Is quirky for me, and is is justifiably supposed to be in the top 5. I love the quirks that these Doctors have, and I love the characterizations that they're portrayed with them. Which leaves the last 2 to be the 2 I had last time. Which one will it be? It's the same as last time. Even though I'm going through him at the moment with my partner watching the series, I still have a soft spot for number 1 more than him. It's the 10th Doctor, David Tennant. Now, he can be a little bit arrogant at times, but I do love the whimsical nature of the 10th Doctor. It's a modern take, and you can understand why he was such a popular Doctor at the time. Young, a la Peter Davison, very human, a la Peter Davison. But he's also got very dark and wild pictures of the Fourth Doctor and the dark tones that you get in later Doctors, like Matt Smith and obviously Peter Capaldi, and the darker side of Colin Baker. You could see that as well. The justice factor is absolutely fantastic, and I do really enjoy the 10th Doctor as a Doctor himself, and I could watch most of the stories pretty well. There's a couple of iffy ones in there, but that's the same with any era, and Midnight is probably one of my favourite Tennant episodes. The technicalities of that story, as much as anything else, is fantastic. But the Doctor himself, Tennant, was brilliant. I think he left at the right time. If he did another season, I think he would have been diluted. I think he would have went down the way of Tom Baker. I think he left perfectly at the right time. If he'd been any longer, he would have maybe been a bit further down this list, but he didn't. He left. And obviously we saw the good elements of the 10th Doctor as well as some of the bad ones in Day of the Doctor. That means, of course, number 1 is still the same as it was 5 years ago. It is the 7th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. Now, very rarely does this Doctor get so high up, but there is an appreciation with McCoy that's coming back now. McCoy's 7th Doctor that's coming back from the modern fans when they're going backwards. They are relating to the 7th Doctor a lot, and that McCoy's later stories, there really isn't much of a difference between Survival and Rose. There is really just a natural development. So Russell D Davies really did work on that. And it shows that if the 7th Doctor era lasted at least another season, it would be very close to Modern Who. There's not really been... It's likely never been away, really. But I do love McCoy's character. And yes, I do appreciate that some of the stories are rubbish, but McCoy always works for me in regards to the way he reacts to the situation. Yes, it's a bit clownish to start with, But that's understandable. He has developed, you know, he came from a comedy background, and there's very Troughton-esque elements of him in to start with. But he very quickly starts maturing into this darker character. By the time Remembrance of the Daleks comes around, his character is very dark. I know the Happiness Patrol comes yet next, and that is one of my favourite stories of all time, the Happiness Patrol. And the reason I like it is because it's just the right mix of the whimsical Doctor that we had earlier in his era, and the Doctor that's darker and more subtle. That is there as well. The scheming Doctor is there, and the balcony scene is one of the best examples in the series, as far as I can see, of that Doctor, of his character. And this is why I love McCoy's Doctor. It is coloured a little bit by the fact, of course, that when I became a fan back in 1996, the first jumping back point would be McCoy's era, and it was, remember, for 16 years, the last up-to-date Doctor Who series we had was 2026. So I watched a lot of McCoy, and I've really grown to love the character. I can see the flaws, I can see the foibles of why people like it, but I really do enjoy McCoy's characterization. I think it's I'm sorry, I just love the character, and he is the first of a completely different type as well. He's the first non-RP speaking Doctor. So he doesn't have the received pronunciation the previous 6 has. He's got that Scottish lilt. He really is a blueprint for a lot of the Doctors of the modern age, and Capaldi has a lot of influence from that. So does Matt Smith. So does, to an extent, does David Tennant, and so of course does Christopher Eccleston. Every Doctor since has had an influence from McCoy in one way or another. The only one that's really been different, of course, the really two have only been different, of course, is the War Doctor and the Eighth Doctor. But every other Doctor can refer back to some sort of element from that plot line and that relationship with the companion, with Ace, from that era. So that's why he's top for me, because he's been the biggest influence for my watching of Doctor Who, my understanding of Doctor Who, and as far as I'm concerned, the whole development of the series going forward. But that's my list for 2023. We have 14 War Doctor, 13 Sixth Doctor, 12 First Doctor, 11 Eighth Doctor, 10 13th Doctor, 9th Third Doctor, 8th 12th Doctor, 7th 11th Doctor, 6 9th Doctor, 5 2nd Doctor, 4 5th Doctor, 3 4th Doctor, 2 10th Doctor, and number 1, as it was last time, the 7th Doctor. That's it from me. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this update to my Doctor's rankings. It's been amazing. It's been 5 years. I've been putting it off just a little bit, but I thought I'd do this for the anniversary. Probably a good place to do it. And here we are. Yes, as I say, comment down below. What do you think about my ratings? Leave your list down below. And if you disagree or agree, leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please like it. Share it with the hashtag deanstructor. If you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. General, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT. The next video is Wednesday at 6 PM GMT. It is Stones of Venice, the Big Finish audio from the 8th Doctor. And if you want to follow me in other places, you can follow me on the socials. You can go to the Facebook page, you can go to the YouTube channel and the community tab, this place. Instagram, you can go to X, formerly Twitter, and you can join me on the Patreon. All for searching Deanstructor on each of the platforms will find the pages relating to me. That's it from me. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you Wednesday with my review of The Stones of Venice. But until then, guys, thank you very much for watching. And you know what? I'll see you later.